Hello everybody, welcome. Today we're talking PSVR2 and specifically one game on PSVR2 that a lot of people have been asking about over the last couple of weeks, and for good reason. It's one of the most popular VR games of all time, and of course it's Blade and Sorcery. It's not on PSVR2, but it is on all the other platforms that we know of at the moment. PCVR has the full version and Quest has Nomad, which is a little bit slimmed down, taking the fat out, and I think only some mods really run that well on Nomad. But PSVR2 doesn't have any version of it, but that's looking to most likely change in the future, as we knew from a little while ago. But today we've got some brand new updates on the game, how it's shaping up, how it's looking, and the footage on screen right now is the PCVR version of the game running with mods, which is a surprise foreshadowing clue that will help us later when talking about this port. So without further ado, let's thank our patrons and members, as they are the ones that bring this content to you every single day, and you subscribe, as only 25% of you are. So after that's done, let's get into it, shall we? So the source of this new update about Blade and Sorcery on PSVR2 comes from u/CamiBoy123 over on the Blade and Sorcery subreddit. It's titled Blade and Sorcery PSVR2. Well, technically Sorcery, because they spelled it wrong, but anyway. Hey everyone, sorry if this has been asked before, but I was just wondering, do we have any updates or news about the PSVR2 port hinted at a while back? Again, sorry if it was asked recently. Very polite question there, and it was responded to by none other than the Baron himself. He says, hey, Cosby is finally looking into this right now. He has a PSVR2 dev kit, there's positive point number 1, and is exploring the port. Positive point number 2. There are a couple of technical issues, but it's generally looking pretty good for PSVR2. Positive point number 3. There is no official announcement just yet because we want to be 100% sure the port will work well. There's also a few question marks we need to figure out, the most glaring being mods. It seems likely Sony will not allow us to have mods or require modding oversight under a structure that is unsustainable for us to supervise as a small indie studio. So that probably means PSVR2 modding will be impossible to add, but we want to be 100% sure that that is the case before any official announcement. Now they do elaborate, but this is the first chunk of text, so let's talk about that. Overall, this is exactly what I expected at the moment. Blade and Sorcery, especially in its 1.0 state, is still one of the best melee combat games ever made. It's got a load of content, it is all fantasy based, there's no outrageous mods like Star Wars, etc. if we can't get that modding support, which for me is what I spend a lot of my time in Blade and Sorcery nowadays, so I think that PCVR would still be my main platform to play on if mods didn't come over. But that being said, I would still use the PSVR2 version of the game to play 1.0, I think, because 1.0 has still got that great melee combat loop in terms of going on runs in dungeons and taking on the big golem bosses, which are really cool. So I still think there's a lot to love there in terms of the community latching onto Blade and Sorcery and enjoying it to its fullest, even without mods. However, it is a missed opportunity, of course. But overall, this points positively to a PSVR2 port, and that would really help the platform in terms of beefing up our melee combat lineup. So we'd have Swordsman, we'd have Arcanage, Undead Citadel, just to name a few. So adding Blade and Sorcery to that mix would really get us up there, so that would be awesome to see. And hopefully, maybe by the end of the year, if they could be quick, but who knows. Anyway, let's continue a little bit, because I want to talk next about Sony and how they handle mods. And to do this, well, we just got to look in the comments, basically, to say it better than I ever could. A user called Carlosless World says, Teardown is an indie game that relied heavily on mods. When they made a console port, they started releasing official quote-unquote mod packs, with mods that can be enabled in the game itself. Maybe you could do that. This is similar to Farming Sim as well. If you go into the in-game menus in Farming Simulator, you can download mods that are basically on a browser there. And I think there is a limit maybe on how much storage you can use up with those mods, because I know Sony are very iffy about expandable storage in games. They don't want you installing a 10GB game and then whacking a load of 50GB mods on top. They just seem to not like that in terms of allowing players to take up their storage with things like that. But for Farming Sim, I believe there is a limit, and you basically download as many mods as you want in that limit. And I don't know how supervised they are in terms of what's allowed and not allowed. I don't know if they have to be let on manually by the devs. I honestly have no idea, but it is possible for them. So perhaps it could also be possible for these devs. But the Baron replied to this comment as well, as they've actually spoken to the Teardown devs. They said, right, in chatting to them, that was one of the things that came up as a cheaty workaround. They are not mods, quote unquote. They are free official mod DLC. I quite honestly hate this type of hoop jumping corporate stuff and would rather leave mods be free and open and leave modding to communities alone, but it is what it is. Doing DLC mods means everything would need to be viciously screened for anything even hinting at copyright, which sucks. So, for example, mods like the Outer Rim, which are all Star Wars weapons which look officially licensed because they look really bang on to the real things, include a load of Star Wars locations, and you can buy Stormtroopers and Jedi and Sith, which is the footage you're seeing on screen right now, coupled with, the mods for the Helldivers mods, for example. That's a Sony property that's copyrighted, so those most likely wouldn't be able to be let through because they can't get the licensing rights to them. Anyway, let's continue. Baron says, but while this seemed like at least something, there is still some concerns and a lot of anxiety, because if the game updates and mods break, we can't force modders to update their mods if they lost interest. We'd also need to take staff away, at least one dev, from future projects and have them stay behind to work on maintain PSVR2 modding, which is rough, especially since for all we know, the PSVR2 modding scene could be minuscule. Overall, I don't know though. I haven't chatted with Cosby about mods in a while, and last we chatted Sony about mods was ages ago. Generally, from what we last chatted, we were both bummed out that this was the way modding was. It also doesn't seem to be the case for large studios like Bethesda, but I've no clue what kind of situation they negotiated there. Possibly they had to hire dedicated moderators to screen everything, but I'm totally guessing, not sure. I'd say Baron's probably right on the money here. They probably have a section of their studio, because they're so big, just going through the mods and making sure that everything is curated as well as it can be. It's a true statement for the mods having to be updated as well. I think there's a similar situation with the store in Minecraft, potentially. Bit of a rogue shout, that one, but I believe it might work the same way. I know of some mods that, for example, don't work with the new Minecraft Vibrant Visuals update that just came out, so you have to wait until the modders update it to work with the new update, basically. And if they don't, then I guess you paid your money or downloaded whatever for something that doesn't work anymore. So they really want to avoid that sort of situation here. This comment though by Baron got another reply from blue_speedy, saying, it's a shame Sony are so strict when it comes to mods. I've heard even games like Fallout 4 and Skyrim get limited mods due to them not allowing external assets to be introduced in those games. The Baron finally responds with one more comment here, saying, totally. My guess is they're probably really paranoid about offensive content or copyrighted content, like Star Wars mods, etc. Exactly as I've just said about the Outer Rim mod. I understand there's copyright, but it has always absolutely killed me when modders are dumped on and projects shut down because of that stuff. If the modders are sharing the content for free, truly, what is the harm in pleasing fans of that franchise? I never got that. And on the one hand, I totally understand why Sony really want to tread carefully around copyright, but on the other hand, I completely agree with Baron here, and I wish it wasn't the case on PSVR2. With all of this red tape, it most likely seems like we're not going to get mods on the PSVR2 port of Blade and Sorcery, and if we are, it'll just be a select few that are chosen, if the dev team really want to, that are then upkept into the main game and made sure that they work over every update. For example, some of the fantasy weapons that aren't linked to any copyrighted material but are loved by the community, like the Katana pack, for example, maybe that could be incorporated into the game. They get the modders to do it up, and then they just make sure that it's updated for every PSVR2 update that comes out to make sure that it still works. But again, that's a lot of work there. But we could see a situation like that. Overall, I wish modding was more simple on consoles, and especially in PlayStation's walled garden system, but that's just the way it is. Anyway, it is looking good for a PSVR2 port, but mods, we're really just not sure. I'll keep you in the loop as always. I know a lot of you have been pining for some Blade and Sorcery news, and well, today we got it. It's not the news a lot of people were hoping for, but it's kind of the news that I expected. But thank you all so much for being here nonetheless, and I hope to see you all in the next one.